Well, in my book, I thought it would take 5 to 7 years on the current track we are. I think Trump, as you said earlier, is an accelerant. Uh, it's certainly not a sure thing. A lot of it goes around what are the underlying interest rates. If we go back to the zero interest rates, real interest rates of the 2010s up through 2022 in the pandemic, well, sure, debt is a free lunch. I mean, you can spend and you basically don't have to pay anything. That's what all the I call them anti-austerians were absolutely convinced, and some very smart people. You had them on your program, followed this. I mean, there was Larry Summers' secular stagnation. He's very nuanced about it, to be fair. Olivier Blanchard, president of the American Economic Association, said we shouldn't look at debt anymore. Paul Krugman, wrote constantly about this. But what do you know? Interest rates have gone up. And the big question is, have we normalized, or is this just something after the pandemic? I think for many reasons, if you look at the
Right.
history of real interest rates, they're probably about where they're going to be for a long time, in which case we are in trouble.
Ken,
So
right,
that's a long-winded answer, but
right.
it's really about interest rates, not just about
I
debt.
want to get this in on interest rates. Paul's got 8 questions. He wants to jump in here. But the answer, Ken Rogoff, is I'm auditing Ec10 with Jason Furman. So I did a fancy logarithmic 30-year bond. We get to the Ken Rogoff 6% 30-year bond. Paul, late next year, like autumn of
Right.
next year.
Yep.
Ken, do you still model a 6% yield for the United States of America?
Well, I think a 6% 10-year treasury is more likely than a 1 3/4 treasury that we had for a long time. Absolutely. I mean, it's very hard to predict interest rates, but I think they're as likely to go up as down.
Professor, I've been in this market since for 35 years, and we've been talking about the national debt and deficits every single year, yet nothing changes. And I guess I've been told by others that say, hey, as long as people continue to buy our treasury bonds, we're okay. How do you think about that?
The question is at what price? We've gone through this period where interest rates have gone down and down and down, and our debt, has gone up from maybe 30% of GDP in 1980 to 60% to 90% to over 120%. And the interest rates had been coming down until they didn't.
Yep.
And if you look at history, there have been long periods where interest rates were rising, where they're in decline. And I think they're in a period where they're normalizing. So people were too focused on debt and not looking enough at, well, what's the interest on the debt? That's what's changed.
What would you, if you were sitting in Congress and you had a couple of folks on both sides of the aisle with you, what would you suggest they do to address this issue?
Well, why don't you at least give a try to running a 2 to 3% deficit instead of a 6 or 7% deficit, while you organize? I mean, the solutions are well known. You improve the tax system. There are ways to make it more efficient. We don't have a very efficient system, would be the understatement of the year. There are all kinds of suggestions for improving growth. But I think sort of a sober thing to do would be to at least not run what we call a primary deficit, means above and beyond the interest payments, which right now are about 3% of GDP.
Just want to drop in here with an important announcement separate from Ken Rogoff, and we're thrilled you're listening to us across the nation today and indeed around the world. And in a fractious United Kingdom, Angela Rayner resigns as U.S. Deputy Prime Minister. I'm not going to go into the nuances because I don't understand it, but there has been an uproar in the Labour Party wrapped around the Deputy Prime Minister. She resigns and also will resign various posts at the Labour Party as well. So that's breaking news in the United Kingdom. We'll have perspective for you as we can. We continue with Kenneth Rogoff. Paul, why don't you pick it up with Professor Rogoff?
So, Ken, as we think about just kind of global economic growth here, and we're now in a world of tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, all kinds of barriers going up to global trade. As you step back and look at it from a 30,000-foot level, what does that mean to you for kind of global economic growth?
Well, I think near term, the growth is held up better than anyone would have guessed with all this noise going on. That's been a surprise. Now, we may find you're getting the labor data today, and it wasn't as good as we thought it was. It's hard to know what's going on. I might interject, Labor Day, Jobs Day has always been the big number because it's the most reliable number that we get sort of in real time. Maybe now and going forward, it's not going to be considered as reliable, and I don't know what we're going to look at.